Start the recording a little fast. Okay. Part where it is like the best awkward thing.
Silence ever. I know, isn't it though?
So,
By the way, I'm going to let you talk mostly about the XP changes. So whenever you want to dive into those, it's up to you.
I can talk about that. It is like the best awkward. Hold on, whoa.
Silence ever. I know, is mostly about.
All right,
I'm
XP
super
changes,
loud in the
so
stream. Whenever you want to dive into those, quiet. It's up to you.
I can talk about that. It is like the best. Hold on, awkward. Hold on.
If you just turn me
Silence
down,
ever.
it's fine. If you turned you up, it's.
I'll turn you down.
Yeah, just turn me down and we're fine, I think.
All right, how was that? We'll wait till it catches up and then we'll see. La 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 la. Na 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 na. Na 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 na.
I'm dumb. You said we'll wait till it catches up and we'll see, and I didn't say anything. So we're just sitting here in silence. I'm waiting to hear myself.
I don't know why I can't hear me. That's funny.
Yeah, okay, that's better.
All right, professional podcasters. All right.
Love it. Love it.
All right, so let's go in 3, 2, 1. Hello out there, it's January 5th, 2017, and welcome to episode 14 of Summoner Sift. I'm here with Projector.
Hey guys, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. How's it? How was your New Year? Do you do anything exciting? Did you bring it in?
I had a big group of friends, people from like 6-7 years ago that I hadn't seen in a while. We all had a big party at a friend's house and for New Year's and just hung out, had a good time. It was really good to reconnect with people and to see some old friends.
Yeah, it was super funny because I was actually where you're from, and then you were. Oh no, I was where you normally are, and you were here.
Yes.
On New Year's, it's like we
switched places.
We switched places, right? Yeah, I did the same. I mean, I hung out with some old friends, which was a good time. Had a blast. Got to see Mariah Carey implode on national television.
That was hilarious.
Which was pretty great.
That was so funny.
So
terrible for her.
It was pretty hilarious. So, and I played a little bit of League. I haven't played a ton this week, but I have played a bit. It's been a little rocky, I'll say. I've had some ups and some downs. Been having some interesting times in the old League of Legends. I have the trend that I talked about with you last week has continued. I have had a lot of toxic people in my games. I've had a number of AFKs. I don't know if I get lumped into the, like the Dota low priority queue or whatever. But I mean, it's been interesting.
Really bad.
So I've been about 50-50 on my games, which, considering I started the season where I was just like destroying, has been, a little rough. But
yeah,
and
it's not like the win rate evened out because of skill. It's literally because you've had intentional feeders and
I've had some feeders. I mean, I haven't played super well in those games either. Like, I wouldn't complain. Like, some of the games that I did win, I didn't play particularly well in, and then some of the games I lost, I played well in. So it matches up. I've had a couple of good Blitzcrank games though. Blitzcrank currently insane in solo queue as always, but feels real good. Redemption is real good on that champion, and probably every other support champion not named Brand. So, but yeah, I mean, I guess that's a good. What about you? Anything to report? Anything exciting?
No, for me, I've just been jungling away, Rek'Sai and Vi, but Vi is pretty much permaban every time I play, so I've been playing a lot more Rek'Sai. And aside from your and my 4-game loss streak that was the most annoying thing on the planet, it's been pretty 50-50. But and games have been going pretty solidly, so I'm not complaining too much. But I've had some not trolls. I haven't had anyone intentionally troll, but I've had a lot of toxic players that I've had to mute. Really just hasn't been great.
Yeah. I've been playing a lot more Kazakhs and just sort of muting the entire team and then just killing people.
I'm excited for like all the kids to just go back to school.
Yeah,
That's
me
what
too.
I'm excited
Absolutely. So I'm ready. So I guess, what we'll start off with is let's talk about like, because we've both been jungling. And we said early on, like in the season and before the season even started, I think we got this like 100% right. And we can pat ourselves on the back a little bit. That jungle is overpowered, right? I mean,
Yep.
we've been saying that for a couple episodes now, and it has turned out to be very true. Jungle is OP, right?
Yeah.
And so they're going to address that soon, and it's actually led. We're going to get to how they're going to address it here, in a couple of minutes. But the side effect of that is when jungle is overpowered, there is one lane that suffers. And it is the bot lane. Because Dragon is down there, where are you going to go? With the way first turret is, like you want that first turret. And it's easier, even with the changes to the turret, like it's still easier to get that first turret bot. And so gank at bot lane is free low, folks, as a jungler.
It really is.
And what that has led to is ADCs feeling completely irrelevant. I think that's been the overwhelming conversation. I mean, have you heard that? Like, I've definitely heard that, and I think that's been going around Reddit quite a bit.
Yeah, and Reddit's thing seems to be about Courage of the Colossus and tanks. And I can understand that as far as tanking, like tankers in this game are concerned. But I don't think that's like the entire issue that ADCs are weak right now or are considered weak by players. I think the jungle really is what's impacting it.
I agree. I think it's a combination of two things. I think the Colossus thing is it's just a symptom, right? Like you can't kill a tank. ADCs can never kill tanks till later in the game anyway. Like, this is not anything new. Like there's been a lot of times where ADCs would try to kill a Malphite or something and they just shrug them off and it was like they weren't even there. That's nothing new. So anybody who's played ADC knows that that's just the way it is. The difference is that they're feeling it a lot quicker because they don't get strong until late in the game, and by then the game has snowballed out of control and the other jungler is crazy fed. And with the itemization changes of flat armor pen going away, they just can't get a spike early. They can't get damage. It's not like having that first item complete does anything. They're just kind of like, okay, they might be able to win their lane, against another ADC, but the minute like a real champion comes down there, like a jungler who's 2 levels ahead of them, suddenly that weakness becomes very apparent because they don't do any damage to them. That guy's 2 levels ahead of them. And those were the situations where I think flat armor pen really mattered. Especially with people not taking Fervor, taking Warlord. So you're doing less damage automatically, but if you don't take Warlord, you ought to lose lane. So like it just stinks. Like they're put into a spot where they can't fight the jungler because they have to be able to fight their laner. And it translates to these bot lane parties where just everybody dies in the bot lane and your ADC feels useless for like the entire game. So
yeah. Because I mean, let's be real, if your ADC could kill everyone in those early game ganks, then late game where they're supposed to shine would be absolute nightmare.
Right.
I mean, like the scaling for them makes sense. It's the fact that everyone else scales way too fast,
way too hard. Namely the jungler.
Hard, yeah.
So the person who's impacting their lane the most and the easiest, who is meant to impact lanes, is infinitely stronger than they are. So
exactly,
you've got a combination of, ADCs aren't good early anyway, but then you have a jungler coming down there who is at least a level higher than them, and has items and is useful, so like it just feels like Lee Sin is an absolute, like he could take like 3 ADCs, like you could put 2 of them down there and a support, and he could almost come down there and fight your bot lane, like it would be okay. Like he could win a 3v3 if 2 of them were ADCs.
Exactly.
Which is not good. Like, so they are definitely going to address that. And we'll get to that in a minute. But what this has led to is an interesting thing, which is kind of wacky, but is happening. And what would that be?
That is, people are shying away from ADCs because they scale too slowly or too weak, whatever, and so they've started playing people like Ziggs in the bot lane. And this is thank you to Shifter, I'm a Cutie Pie, and a couple others who started this trend, and now the whole world is copying it of AP carries in the bot lane.
Mm-hmm.
This is it works, especially Ziggs, because of the way that his kit works with towers. He basically shoves down your turret in like 10 minutes. It's ridiculous because he just waves clear, and they build AP like normal, and they just take over. And it's an interesting trend. Since I tend to play mobile junglers, it's actually been fun for me to just delete the enemy AP carry.
Yeah,
But
same.
but I mean, it works. Like I've seen it work really well, and that is a huge trend that's happening right now.
Yeah, if you accept that you're going to be weak early anyway, like why not play an AP carry? You know that can wave clear better than a regular ADC, can take a turret faster, and like has like other useful abilities and can actually do damage. Like Ziggs can actually do damage to someone early, not a ton, but there's damage there versus someone like Caitlyn who just does nothing. I mean, she does nothing early game. Even though she has a really good lane phase, she loses like early to Vayne off of the 2-item spike. Like, so it's like, it's a weird world when Caitlyn is losing to Vayne early. Like, you know that something is wrong. The other thing is, in addition to Ziggs, is Mordekaiser is actually, I think, a very good bot laner. I don't think a lot of people are playing him currently, but like, they've sort of de facto made what they were intending to do, you know, back when they made Mordekaiser a bot lane carry. And they've said this a bit as Ghost Crawl, and I don't want to go into the Ghost Crawl as like big long posts because there's a lot of stuff that's inflammatory there, and he kind of like fanned the flames, but like, and it was sort of like taken out of context and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But the point that he does make is that he wants to see flexibility in the lane roles. And this is
what I was about to say, that same thing. I love you for that.
This is the start, right? Like he was looking for like more champions in other lanes. And, you know, they tried to pigeonhole with Mordekaiser, and everybody knows how that kind of worked out. But this is the start of that, you know? So like starting to see champions like, you know, people playing Yasuo down there, people playing Cassiopeia. You know, it's a funny Reddit post, and a guy was like, you know, top 5 ADCs this you know, and like 1, 2, and 3 are like AP carries, you know. So I mean, I get it, it sucks, and ADC is just in a bad time. It's not to say that like, one thing that I think people should be very aware of is that like, just remember that like most of the time in your games this doesn't affect you, you know. So like, this is a big problem, like at like Diamond, you know, and Challenge. Like you may think like, oh man, I'm good, my games are the same. They're not. Like ADCs are just fine in Plat or below. Plats when they start to have problems, and like it's a little harder to carry on ADC. Like if you're an ADC main and you're trying to get out of bronze, but here's the thing: like if you learn how to play the game and you play just fine on ADC, you're gonna climb. So like, don't sweat it, and they're gonna fix some things. So like, just enjoy the madness currently. And when some dude like has never played Ziggs and he rolls down bot lane and you get to play Vayne into him, just dump on him, you know, take advantage. So
well, and that's a thing that I encountered because my flex queue MMR is super weird. So I had to do my promos to gold in flex queue, playing against high plats and low diamonds. And 2 out of the 4 games that it took me to get through my promos, my ADC was the diamond player on my team. And the ADC on their team was like high plat, and both games that happened, my ADC carried hard, and they were like, yeah, I play in flex to goof off. Like, you can carry if you know what you're doing, if you know positioning well, if you're learning, like you'll carry as an ADC. And part of that depends on how you play relative to other people making mistakes, stepping too far forward, and punishing just like you always have.
And it's not, I think the important thing to remember is like, this advantage that we're talking about, like where ADCs have a lot of trouble, it's an early game thing. Like as the game goes on, like that gap is closing. Like junglers are like less farmed than they would be. Like you're going to catch up, and eventually you're going to get your items and you will be strong. It's just, it's tough to get through those early stages. So like, if you're an ADC out there, hey man, like just tough it out. You'll be all right. And be prepared when Ziggs brings it down there. Don't think you're just gonna dump all over him because he is legit. Also, for all you supports out there, don't pick engage supports in a Mordekaiser. I've seen it like so many times when you have a classic like the last game I played versus a Mord. It was like a Caitlyn Blitzcrank lane, and like he picked Blitz when the other team picked Mord, and it was clearly a bot lane Mord. And like I'm like, what are you doing? Like you cannot pick Blitz into that champion. And he like grabbed him like 3 times, and Mord would just kill him. Like you just straight up delete him, just be like, okay, bonk, and then that's it. So, not a good idea. Be careful. Like just play your lane, farm up, stay safe. Like you'll be all right.
Yeah.
But I think that that kind of leads us to the next point that we have on the list is that, they're going to have to do something to the jungle. Jungle's overpowered. Like, there is one of the things they're going to do is make it so you can just ban a bunch of junglers, which is the one with, But
exactly.
There's inherently an issue with the role, right? You're getting too much money. You're getting too much experience. You could hard farm. I think, remember we talked about this, like, a lot of people thought during the preseason that, like, hard farming jungler is over. It's over. Nobody's going to do it. Like, that's all we do. So we hard farm, get all the money we would have got anyway, and then we just come and kill you, and then we just do it again. Like, and then when our camps are down, it's like, okay, now I guess I have to come out, and I'm 2 levels higher than everyone, so I'll just kill everyone. And that's virtually what's happening, right? Like, so these champions that do really well with level leads, like Vi, Lee Sin, Hecarim, like those champions are like the top of the heap because the XP in the jungle is too high, and they're going to address that with the next patch. And how do you feel about that? Do you feel like that's appropriate as someone who's like riding that Vi train to mass riches?
I'm torn because like for game balance, I think it's a good thing to mess with the jungle XP and that scaling, but at the same time, like I loved being overpowered.
Feels good, doesn't it? Like
it feels really good to feel that useful. So I think it's justified though, and I think that'll remedy a lot of the problems with laners being able to or not being able to really carry the games as well. It really should be. I think Scar is the one who said this a while ago. He said, junglers are the least risk role. They're not interacting with the enemy as much throughout the game, and they're being rewarded for basically PvE. They're being rewarded for player versus AI instead of player versus player. Whereas laners, it makes sense. If you've earned your lead as a laner, it means you've outlaned someone else directly, and you're constantly interacting with that opponent. And so for you to have less of a reward there, it feels worse as a laner. Whereas a jungler, I can just AFK farm and play like I'm playing the computer and then come in and destroy everyone. That isn't fair. And I think for game health, it's great that they're balancing the jungle role so that it will be as rewarding as it should be for what it is.
Yeah, I agree. And like they're close. I mean, they're very close. Like they've tweaked it a little too hard, but I've been through like all of this. Like I've been through each swing of it where there was a time when we couldn't get any gold, and like the only item you ever got was Locket. Like where you got jungle items, boots, Locket, and then the game was over. And like that wasn't too great, but now we're back to, then we went through a stage where we were super weak, and then they swung hard the other direction when they made Feral Flare, and we were just crazy overpowered, and like you would farm to 6 and then just walk out and like push R and delete someone. Like it was the most ridiculous thing ever. And literally on Warwick, you would just farm to 6 and push R and people would die. So like, I've been through all of this, and like I will say that in the like when they say like stuff is broken, like and stuff is overpowered, this is the closest that they've gotten at the beginning of a season after they made like sweeping changes that I feel very, very good about this season, because I had a lot of doubts at the beginning of the season with all the item changes they were making, things like that. And I mean, you can go back and listen to the cast. Is like, I was not high on plants. I don't think you were high on plants.
Still not
super high, but not as bad as I thought.
Yeah, that's fair.
To be honest. And, I was down on a lot of the item changes. I think a lot of the new items kind of stink, but maybe that's just because people haven't really tried them and whatever. But I think that early in a season, this is the closest that they've gotten because there's only one role really out of whack. There's like one champion in top lane, like Camille is broken and whatever. They'll play with her a bit. But other than that, like in jungle being overpowered, I think they're pretty close. So I think like they'll need to tweak around a couple of things, but I think they're pretty close.
Yeah, and I'm glad that they're only doing XP and they haven't touched a gold with the jungle. Like they're being intentional. They're not going across the board at the bat. They're just saying, all right, let's target one area and make sure that that's not the problem area. Right. And I do think XP is the problem area. I don't think it's gold.
I 100% think XP is the problem because XP leads to more gold.
Exactly.
And because now like I can do whatever I want. Like now I can just walk around and kill people with impunity. And if I get behind, it doesn't matter because I can just power farm my jungle and catch right back up. So I mean, we're kind of dancing around this, but yeah, they're going to change the XP in the jungle. The tentative changes that they have announced is that on your first clear, your non-buff camps like your Gromp, your wolves, your chickens, your Krugs, like those things are just going to give a flat 25% less XP on the first clear. So I have some thoughts on why this is going to happen, but I'm going to go through the other changes just real fast. And they're sort of changing XP across the board on all of the camps. It's very low. It's like 5% roughly. They're lowering like blue, red, Gromp, little Krugs, mini Krugs, all getting lowered. And then they're increasing chickens, razor beaks, whatever you call them. So I have a couple of thoughts on this. I think like this addresses a lot of the issues that I perceived in the jungle, which was there was no impetus, especially on the champions. Like the reason you're seeing the champions that are good right now is because they can do full clears. Okay. Like the champions that are good are champions like Vi, Hecarim. They can do entire clears the first time they go through the jungle if they want. And that is like huge because even like power farmers or power junglers, like early game powerhouses like Lee Sin, they can't do that clear, right? Lee's good for other reasons, like, get him out of the way. But champions that were previously not good, because Lee was good before, right? Like Vi, like where Vi had sort of fallen out of the meta. She's back because she can power farm the entire jungle and like literally do like one clear, and she's damn near 6. Like I mean, she's almost there, right? Like what was it you were saying? It was like you could power farm the jungle, do one clear. You're talking about
if I get just one successful gank or 2 successful ganks where even I just have the assist, not even the kill. Like I'm one jungle creep, not one jungle camp, one jungle creep from 6 on Rek'Sai.
Yeah, you're pretty much like it's like hard farm your jungle, get an assist, and you're basically 6, and that is a problem. Like that is not the way, because when you're almost 6, way prior to your buffs respawning again, which should be about 7 minutes. Like that's an issue. Like you're strong, because most generally when games are going normally and you haven't been like popping off or a lot of combat, you're hitting 6 like off of that second round of buffs, like that first buff that you take. That's kind of the way the game has always worked, right? Like you're taking that second buff, like my blue buff is spawning again. You take that blue buff and boom, you're 6. That's generally how it's worked in the past. Now you're 6 before you even get there. And like, if heaven forbid you actually get to soak a lane creep or 2, like you are 6, 100%. So I like these changes. I think that this is where I would change them. The one that does scare me is the 25% less XP on the first clear. That's a little scary. But what it will do is they're trying to force us into double buff starts, right? Like that's what this is they want you to go buff, creep, buff, and then do a scuttle crab or do another camp, right? They don't want you to go full clear, be level 4, kill a guy, be level 5, that's not what they're looking for. Like, so like they want the, camp buff or buff, it's buff camp buff gank. That's what they're looking for. They're trying to make you do that. But I would actually argue there's going to be some weirdness here, and I want to hear your thoughts, and then I'll kind of talk a little bit more about it. But what do you think is going to happen when they do this?
So the first thing I think is going to happen is this: all the junglers that are either new junglers that picked it up recently, or even me to some extent, I'll be tempted to do this too. As soon as the XP changes go through, and junglers don't feel like they're leveling as fast or don't feel as impactful in the early game, you're going to see a lot more taxing on ganks, failed or successful. So as a laner, be prepared for that. If you are laning, be prepared for increased taxes or tax attempts on your lane. I try not to unless they give me permission, or I will tax like 3 minions if I got the assist from the kill instead of the kill itself. You know what I mean? So I try to balance between. But you'll see some players who will just like, well, I got to get more for myself because I feel like I'm falling behind and I got to be more relevant, and you'll see that. So I think that's going to be the first thing. The second thing is I don't know that this is really going to. I'm worried. I don't know that this is going to entice people to do anything other than farm, and not because they want the advantage, but because they want to keep up. So I still think we're going to see AFK farming with this, because
I actually 100% agree. Like
I think we're going to see more because they're afraid if I gank, fall behind the enemy jungler. Like this makes counter ganking even more valuable, in my opinion.
But not early. So if you think about it, like there's a weird
not the
thing
first clear. Yeah,
there's a real weird thing that happens here where those first camps, you have to get them out of the way, right? Like you have to get through that first series, because here's what is not good. Like here's like when you really get screwed is when you leave those camps up. So like what I was talking about, like this is like a weird indirect nerf to Lee in a weird way. So like I don't understand why they did this in addition to the R nerfs on Lee, because if you haven't heard, like they're nerfing Lee's base damage. That probably is in actually pretty substantially on his R. Like the flat damage is down like up almost 25% at rank 1. It's like 50 damages from 200 to 150. But this hurts him a lot, because what it does is it says, okay, so Lee is going to go blue, Gromp, red, gank, right? Well, what happens is his Gromp's going to respawn, and so he's going to go back. He's going to get full stuff from that. But by the time Lee is strong enough to actually start farming his jungle, his camps are still small, so he's not getting XP off of them. So like it's almost important that you remember when we talked like early when we were talking about you have to cycle your camps. Like, because the respawn is, like, so important, like, because the respawn timer is long, I think it's almost more important now. Like, you've got to get through that first set of camps so that you can get experience, like, so that you don't fall far behind. Because imagine that you do that, like, on Lee, you do the buff, Gromp, buff, and then gank, and then you die, right? Or, like, you don't get a kill, or you don't get anything. So, what are your, like, say you don't get the kill, but you don't die. Okay, fine. What are you going to do? You're probably going to invade his jungle, right? Like you go look for him or look for a camp. But the problem is that camp isn't worth anything. It's worth 25% less. So now like it's just this weird scenario, and actually in a weird way, you're kind of helping him, because if he's bot and you're clearing his Gromp, you're making his next Gromp more beneficial to him.
Yeah, worth something to him.
So when he goes up top to clear Gromp, it's worth more than it would have been. Like you've actually helped him. So there's some strangeness that's going to happen here. I think that this indirectly is a nerf to Lee, like pretty heavy. It's a nerf to a lot of junglers, like jungler overall, but it's a hard nerf to Lee in addition to the R buff. So like Lee's going to have some issues, especially with players who don't play him a lot. Like it's going to be tough. The other thing I think this is actually an indirect buff to champions that clear Raptors very well. So like Hecarim, for instance, like who I would argue one of the reasons Hecarim's real good right now is because he clears Raptors like in like 2 spells. He just like pushes W, pushes Q, and the camp's dead. Like it's actually a buff to him because he's going to get more XP from the beaks. So like it's not a buff like overall, like he's not going to be stronger in relation to everybody else, but against other junglers, there's not a lot of like junglers that can actually clear that camp effectively early. Which is going to be really weird. Like this is a strange change. Like it's very interesting. It's really interesting to me that they chose to do both of these. You know,
both nerf the overall XP plus the first clear percentage.
I almost wish that what they would have done was just do the first clear bonus, like
Yeah.
nerf, and then leave it alone and see what happens. And then if that's not enough, start lowering the bases. But like this is a big hit to some of these, but like Grump, for instance, like is going to lose a lot, like a lot. So whereas Grump used to give you 210, right? So let's just do the math here. Like Grump used to give you 210 experience, right? So they're lowering Gromp from 210 to 200, but then they're taking 25% away from it on the first clear. So the first Gromp that you take, whereas it used to give you 210, is going to give you 150.
Yep.
Like 60 less experience. That's crazy. Like, I mean, like what? Like,
I will say this 100% kills any. I mean, I know they already fixed that with Gromp and Krug spawning late. This 100% takes away any starting any laner starting camps because they're not going to get enough XP. Because we even get 50 bonus experience from the item,
yeah,
and it's still a 60 hit nerf to us. It's even harder to them. So this really takes away any incentive for a laner to do any camp almost at any point of the game, honestly, unless it's just there.
Well, I mean, I don't know about that. I mean, because it's literally only a 5% like difference, but I think like it's important to remember that like, man, that's a lot of experience early, like a ton. Like it is a huge amount of experience. The other thing that I think this also does is it makes Scuttle Crab more enticing, in my opinion, because Scuttle Crab didn't get nerfed. So Scuttle Crab is now
they want people to fight over it.
They wanted people to fight over it. Also, wolves didn't get nerfed. Like they're exactly the same. They still have the 25%, but like they're not taking an XP bonus. So wolves are actually probably one of the better camps to be clearing. So like I don't know how much that matters. You're clearing wolves pretty much on cooldown anyway. Like the weird camps are really Krugs. Like people aren't clearing Krugs on cooldown. But this is a strange thing. Like I am very interested. I don't know that I can fully wrap my head around like what this is going to do, but intuitively I know that it's a nerf to Lee, like pretty heavy, like probably heavier than other junglers, especially in combination with his 6 isn't as good now. But I feel like it's a buff to people that can clear Raptors. We'll see. Or champions that have a good early gank that doesn't require levels. So like I think champions that have a good level 3 gank
are going to be fine.
Are going to be okay. So I think this is probably like it makes Zach a little bit better. Because Zach was fine, but he wasn't like overpowered. And I think this makes Zach a little bit better because he can clear Raptors. He has a solid level 3. He doesn't need, I mean, he needs levels, but he doesn't like get broken with them. Like his level 3 is strong. He doesn't need them to clear. Like Zach does he can do a full clear, no problem. I don't know. We'll see. It's going to be really interesting. I think this is also kind of a nerf to Kha'Zix in a weird way because Kha'Zix had to do romp. Like he had no other like way to clear.
Yeah.
And he can't do the only other camp he can really do is wolves. Like you're not doing Krugs or Razorbeaks on your first like go through as Kha'Zix. Yeah. Well, hopefully, like unless you don't want to gank a lane. Like so it's gonna be weird. I mean, this is a big change. And
I'm glad they're doing something. I think
agree.
this will work, but I do think that the overall XP nerf is going to hurt more than I think they want it to.
Yep. So we'll see. I mean, hopefully this indirectly does a bunch of things. I hope they give it time to breathe. Is what I would say. Like let it sit. Let's see what happens, and we'll see. So the one thing we did talk. So that's jungle. Hopefully they're gonna like, so they're nerfing up the jungle or all our junglers. Our day of our reign of terror is coming to an end. Our free low is a little less free.
Yeah.
So, and that brings us to the next thing, which you want to talk about, like these upcoming changes to pro play. We're not really a pro play podcast, but we like to occasionally this.
Yeah, every once in a while.
I think this is going to trickle down too. Personally,
no, it will. That's their intent is that it would. So they are changing pro play in the spring split to start doing 10 bans instead of 6. And it's not 10 bans off the bat. It will be the normal ban phase, and then each team picks their first 3 picks, and then each team bans 2 more. alternating like normal. So that way it's not necessarily one person can get target banned. That's impossible now unless they ban them in the first 3, but it's more about adapting to the enemy team's comp and otherwise. And the reason this is starting in pro play first and will not be reflected immediately in regular matchmaking that we experience is because 10 bans and the entire pick ban phase for pro play is so much different than it is for solo queue and flex queue. You don't have the opposition, you don't have their favorite champions because you don't even know who the opposition is. So they're looking for how they will be able to implement it in the way that won't result in a longer period of time to get into a game, and also still give each person equal power as far as being able to ban and it feeling more fair. But that is, so we'll start seeing this in Spring Split, which starts in just 2 weeks on January 20. We'll start seeing more pro play with 10 bans, which I'm really excited about. I think it's really going to shake things up a bit. I'm excited to see more picks than just, the usual ones. And I'm really excited to see how teams analysts will adapt to the new structure as well.
Yeah, I also, and like, just briefly, how do you think, and this was my biggest question, like, when I saw this. So I agree. I think this is a really cool change. I think, like, switching it up for pro play is a good thing. Like, they adapt really well. I like to see how the pros kind of adapt. And this also changes it to the point of, like, we've talked about this in the past, but, like, Riot kind of does the carousel of champions where, like, it's time for this champion to be good. And it's time for this champion to not be so good. And they kind of do that, like, where they cyclically bring champions in and out of the meta. And this makes it, like, very different for pros to adapt, because it's like, oh, well, Rek'Sai's not good right now, Lee's not good, but Elise is, so I'll play Elise, and, like, that's kind of how pro play works. And there's maybe, like, 7 junglers that are actually good. When you can ban 5 of them, it's a weird, strange world, like, where, like, where only 3 of those are in the meta at a time, and you can literally ban all the good ones. We're going to get into a strange world where I think people will play more like pocket pick type stuff. The other thing that I think was really interesting is the way that this ban is going to, for the first time, the bans are going to be split, which is a Dota thing, which is, where they do the 3. So you'll have the standard 3, and then 3 people will pick, and then there'll be 2 more bans on each side. So you have 3 bans on each side, and then 3 people will pick, and then 2 people will ban on each side, and then 2 more people will pick, which is, like, totally weird to me. I guess that's really normal for Dota, right? Like, that's kind of how it works.
And it makes sense because you can't target ban someone, and you can't, like, your team's not going to be banning out one comp. Mm-hmm. So that's what this allows for. If they ban 3 people and then Bjergsen picks his mid laner in the first round of drafts, now they can't ban out Bjergsen. So it offers teams a more strategic diversity as far as the way they ban out comps, or ban out, oh, they're running this comp, we can ban out this champion and make them adapt here. And so I think it's going to open up a lot more strategic diversity that way.
I think it's really cool. Yeah. I mean, and it starts to, you got into systems, just like, it's a lot more weirdness with, like, you get into some situations with, like, when do we pick champions becomes a lot more important. Because, like, if we don't pick it now, are they going to ban it? Like,
exactly.
You didn't have to worry about that, but if it didn't get banned and you could pick a champ, you could pick it. Like, but now, like,
unless they're going to pick it.
Yeah, exactly. Are they going to pick it, or are they going to, like, wait? Like, this is a weird, strange thing. Also, like, I feel like it's going to be harder to build, like, sort of gimmicky comps. So, like, stuff like Protect the Cog, and I'm just going to use, like, the Wombo combo stuff, poke comps, like, that sort of thing. Split push comps are going to be harder too, because if it looks like they're picking a bunch of disengage in the first 3 rounds, what are you going to do when, like, they ban the best split pushers? Then they go, oh, well, we should ban, I don't know if, like, who the split pushers, what if they ban Jax and Zed? Like, what do we do? Like, now we don't have a split pusher. It's going to be weird. That's going to be an interesting, wrinkle to pro play. I think it makes the ban pick way more interesting, where it was just sort of like whatever before.
I think the biggest thing for regular players to take away from this, I know a lot of times we tend to model solo queue ends up reflecting pro play, and what the players are picking, that's what we end up picking. What the players are banning, that's what we end up banning. But since the bans in the pick phase are no longer going to resemble what we experience, I think we're going to see a much larger rift. Get it? Between between pro play and between our play, and so this gives you less reason to, oh, Bjergsen picked that, I gotta pick that. No, he picked that because the other two best picks for it were already banned. So I think we're going to see a less there's going to be less incentive to copy exactly what the pros are doing just because they did it. So I don't want to say be more hesitant to just copy them. I think you should always know why you're copying them in the first place. But now it's not just they think it's strong. Why do they think it's strong? No, it's, oh, these other picks got banned. This was just the next best thing.
Yeah. That's a very good point.
Solo queue is not. I mean, solo queue 10 bans are going to be Yasuo, Nidalee, Rex. You know what I mean? Like they're always going to be the same OPs per patch. It's not going to be as flexible as the ban phases are going to be in pro play.
It's going to be weird, and like all these like weird obscure one tricks are like, like they want to see like all these weird.
Oh man, because it's gonna suck for high elo when they're 10 bans and they're just target banning the other team because they're all on their friends list. Oh man,
yeah. I mean, like those one trick ponies, like it's like a slap in the face to all those one tricks that like, Riot's sort of been like encouraging for a while now, and like they're all gonna be like, but I only play Tryndamere. It's like, well, they have 5 bans to decide to ban Tryndamere.
It would be really funny if all of the high elo players decided to unfriend each other so they couldn't see when they were in queue.
Yeah.
And then like only friended when they wanted to duo.
I actually have said for a long time that I thought that friends in queues, like I thought that if you were past a certain MMR, like Masters, Diamond, probably Diamond 2 or above, you shouldn't see when somebody's in queue. You actually should just show them as online all the time. I've thought that for a long time, but I get like the functionality friends list, but like the friends list should function differently for high MMR players. Because it's silly that they can just like Q snipe and stuff like that, but that's another discussion. Yeah, so I mean it'll be interesting, right? And like the guys out there who are playing like, oh, I'm a Galio main, like, this is your time, it's coming. Like when this trickles down into regular solo queue, like you're gonna be king because there'll be no one else to fight you.
Yep.
So, all right. So, I mean, cool stuff. So, interesting things happening. This has been a really interesting season. Lots of changes, more changes to come. I'm excited.
I agree. All right. So let's jump into some listener questions.
Yeah.
We've got quite a few tonight. Yeah. So I'll take the first one. It comes from Seiger, who's a good friend of ours. Didn't even know he listened. So glad you listened, Seiger.
Yeah.
So he sent us kind of a quick flurry of questions. And so we'll just run through these one at a time really quickly. He says, first, what are your favorite junglers in your pools ranked by complexity? So mechanically and broadly. So just as an overall champion, and then both. So what are, I guess, top 2? What are your top 2 favorite junglers?
So I'm playing a lot of Lee Sin and Kha'Zix. I would argue that Kha'Zix is probably the less mechanical of those two. Lee is pretty hard to play. I've also been playing a lot of Vi because like if she's unbanned because she's like straight busted. And that champion's pretty easy to play. I mean, there's some subtlety there, but mostly Kha'Zix. I'm playing Kha'Zix, Lee, and Vi.
So. I've been playing just Rek'Sai and Vi are the main 2 that I've been going to. A little bit of Hecarim in there, but my favorite champion to play right now is Rek'Sai. My favorite mechanical champion to play would be Vi, only because Vi she's not hard mechanically. But she's very satisfying when you land everything in the right order. You cancel your autos correctly. Everything goes well. Like I think that she's so rewarding for that. You land that fully charged Q. You auto cancel after your ult and get those W stacks off. And I just think it's super satisfying. Rek'Sai, that W flash is so much fun. That flash on Burrow is just the most fun. It's so simple, but it's so satisfying to me when I land it.
I think that's actually a big part of champion design is how it feels when you land the abilities. Like what happens when you land it. And Vi, I think, is one of the most satisfying champions in the game to land an ability on because all of her abilities feel like they have weight. like all of them. You know, like
Yeah.
when her Q lands, it's like, you know, there's a knock up and like it does a bunch of damage. And then like when her E lands, there's like that big explosion and a noise. And then like when her R, like there's this whole animation. And even when her passive goes off, it's like this popping noise. I think that like Vi is one of the best design champions in that regard because all of her like stuff feels impactful.
Yep.
Which I think is really cool. So
cool. All right, let's jump in to the next
keep going.
One of it. So when ganking for a laner without CC or a laner that has CC that's better used as a follow-up, what do you expect them to do and what should they do?
All right, so just start fighting the guy. Like, just fight him. Like, get him to fight you. And like, this is different, like in every situation, because only you know the guy that you're laning against. I don't know him, but like, by the time that I'm coming to gank, you should have a general idea of like what he'll do. Like, even like level 3, level 4, you're starting to learn like, what does this guy do when I walk up to CS? Like, what does he do when I trade? And like, just learn how to make him fight you, and then do that. Because all I want him doing is fighting you so that when I come, he's not paying attention to me.
Yeah. CC isn't the thing that I really pay attention to. It's really about gap closers. Champions like LeBlanc, champions that can easily get away. Those are the ones that I'm more concerned about how they're using their abilities. But CC hasn't really been a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think most junglers have CC, you know, for the most part. Like, we need damage or you need to bring one or the other. Like, you either bring damage or you bring CC. And, like, if you don't have CC to bring, that's fine. Put damage on him. Even if it's, like, an unfair trade. That's the other thing. Okay, so this is a good lead into this part. Is, like, if you know you can't trade with a guy. Say he's fed, right? Like, so you've died once. You gave first blood to this dude. And you're in lane against him. I'm coming to gank him. Don't be afraid of him. Like, I'm coming to fight him with you, okay? You have to fight him to make him fight you so that we can kill him together. At some point, you're going to have to fight him. So don't wait. The biggest thing that I see so much in, like, when I'm ganking lane, and the thing that infuriates me like nothing else is, like, they'll spam ping for a gank, right? And this is not those situations where, like, they're on their turret and, like, farming a giant wave and, like, whatever. But, like, they're in the middle of the lane and, like, the guy's a little fed and they'll spam ping because they're behind. They know they're behind. And they don't fight the guy. They're so scared to fight him. And I'm like, dude, like, you have to fight him. You have to start. Because here's the thing is, like, people who are fed, like, they know they're ahead, they're really willing to fight you. They know they want to fight you because they know they can kill you. If, like, they know that, like, this is a good trade for them. They're going to do it. But the reason you take that trade is because you know I'm going to be there. And we'll kill him together. So just fight him. Like, that's the biggest thing that I would say.
Yep. And I will say, as far as CC used, if you're ganking for a laner on your team that has CC, have them use it in a way that is the most advantageous to you. So, for example, wait till they auto you and have the minion aggro, and then CC them in your minion aggro so that they're taking more damage. Or CC, try to time it so either they can't use their abilities before they'll die, or stack it with your jungler's CC if they bring it. Try to use it in the most advantageous way that the laner won't be able to get away. Do not just use it. Use it when it's most advantageous for you and your jungler.
And all of these start with you fighting the guy. Like, so just fight that man. Like, just get in there and fight him, and then I'll show up and help you, and, like, we'll fight him together. But, like, you have to get him fighting. Like, if you're just, like, sitting sort of last hitting, like, in the middle of the wave, like, in the middle of the lane, that's a terrible gank. Like, I'm not coming. Like, if you're not going to fight him, like, I'm not coming back. Because I need you to start the fight. Like, this is the biggest misconception, is, like, he's fed, I can't start the fight. No, you have to start the fight because he's fed, right? Because I cannot kill him otherwise.
Yeah, I can't take free damage while you try to catch up.
Yeah, you try to run up the lane and run through a bunch of minions. Just fight him. Like, yes, you would lose the one-on-one if I wasn't coming, but you have information that he doesn't. You know that I'm going to be there, you know. So just fight the guy. That's the biggest thing. If you don't know what to do, just fight him. Like, if your jungler's like, I'm coming up, just start fighting the dude.
And play it smart. You know, if you're getting aggro from a Darius, like, move into him so that his Q can't heal himself off of it and don't do as much damage to you. Kite them out if you need to. Do whatever you need to do to get to start fighting them. but play smart, obviously.
Yeah, and that's not like saying like flash ignite, like, go crazy, but like most people, when you are in lane with them, if you walk up to fight them, right, they will fight you back, especially if you do something stupid like whiff an ability or like burn a cooldown that they know is long. Like, they'll fight you. And like that's all it takes most of the time, so just fight the guy.
Yep. All right. 3, advantage of restarting refillable potion over standard potions. Additionally, why upgrade to hunters? This one is pretty easy.
Yeah,
I think.
So you should never, if you're a jungler, you should never buy standard potions ever.
The only time I touch standard potions are if I am doing clears and customs, because I don't have a leash. That's it.
Literally, if you cannot jungle on a champion with a refillable potion, then you should not be jungling.
Yep.
Or not on that champion, because like something is wrong. Like, you should be able to leash the camps and do them in the correct order and use your smite appropriately. You should not need more than a refillable potion.
Now, if you're doing norms and learning the role, that's fine.
That's a different thing. Yeah, that's a different thing. But like in a real game, like you should only be using a refillable.
Yep.
So now upgrading to Hunter's Potion, this is actually something I'm interested to hear, because I actually never do it. So
okay.
I'm interested to see when
I'll give you one.
Yeah.
So there are a few champions that Hunter's Potion is actually core on. Olaf, Hecarim, and Vi. It's core on, but it's not as core on. But it's mainly Olaf and Hecarim. Really, Olaf, you really can't keep clearing without it, because you run out of mana so much. But you only buy Hunter's Potion on champions that have really heavy mana use. Vi, I only buy Hunter's Potion when I'm behind or even. If I'm snowballing, I ignore it and go for my items as fast as possible. Olaf, you really can't clear without blue buff or Hunter's Potion. And Hecarim is kind of the same way, because his Q spam, both of their Q spams are so heavy. But you really want it on just champions that are very mana dependent. You're not building on a Rek'Sai. You're not building it on Master Yi, because he just autos everyone to death. You're not building it on the champions that don't either use a lot of mana or don't even have mana. Yeah, only those that
really mana intensive, high spam ability champions, right? Like,
I mean,
Olaf with his Q, Hecarim with his Q, like,
and Vi, because of her E hurts a lot. And if you're maxing Q, it's like 90 per use.
Yeah, so I mean that's actually something I don't build it on her. So like I don't know, like I don't farm as much as you though. Like, you're a hard farmer. I gank a lot more. Like, so
yeah,
I spend a little less time in the jungle, but it's probably, when you're playing correctly, you probably should buy.
Well, it's just if you're really ahead, there's no use for it, because you really want the damage, because you're wanting to utilize your lead while you have it. But as far as mana is concerned, if you're stuck farming, you need that mana. If you're behind, you need that mana. Or else you're going to get 3 camps and be like, well, great, now I can't do anything. So especially on Olaf and Hecarim. I mean, Olaf, your first back is literally cooldown boots and Hunter's Potion.
Hunter's Potion, yeah.
Like, that's your first back. If you're buying anything else, you're playing Olaf wrong.
Because his early clear is it's good and it's fast, but like, man, you have no mana. Like, you have no mana at all. So all right, so let's move on. So hopefully that answers all your questions. He also says Happy New Year, Merry Christmas. Great. We're Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, Sager. Hope you had a good one. So
yep.
All right, so do you want to do the next one? I'll take the last one.
Okay, that works. So this one comes from a guy named Dan. He says, "Hey guys, been listening to the show since day one so far, and as a guy leveling a support and jungle, I feel very much at home here. I'm still on my journey to 30, so my question may be totally novice, but I figure you jungle mains would know how to handle the predicament that I found myself in earlier. I was trying out Nocturne recently, great, right up my alley, and got stuck going up against a Lee Sin that counter jungled me immediately. I took my blue side, proceeded to red, and then got blown up. He then took my entire red half, gained a 2-level lead on me, and I proceeded to drag my team down, being unable to counter gank or even pull off a decent gank until 6. So my question is, when playing a champion that relies so much on farming early, how do you recover from getting counter jungled in the early game? Love the show. Hope you all had a fantastic holiday season. Keep up the great work. Dan."
Yeah, so you go ahead and give because you're the Nocturne guy here.
I'm the Nocturne player.
But I have opinions on this as well. So go ahead.
So getting counter jungled sucks. And if you're Lee Sin, that's exactly what you should be doing. That Lee Sin played that correctly. because you should obviously be up in the enemy jungler's face and taking all of his stuff. As a Nocturne, if you're in this position, the first thing that you should do when game starts, you've got an enemy Lee Sin. You know that like a Shaco, a Lee Sin, a Nidalee, even a Rek'Sai, you know that they can invade you early. Get wards down. Have your top laner ward the opposite side of the jungle, or your bot side ward your other, your other buff. As you're doing buffs, so say I walk up to red buff, and start attacking it, I'm gonna ward the brush that's right next to me, so that I can see them coming if they come. I'm also gonna pull out the camp. I'm gonna cut it back so that if a Lee Sin throws a Q across the wall, he won't actually hit anything. So I'm going to pull it out a little bit. And so you have things that you can do. If you're already to the point that they're counter jungling you, taking your stuff, ward up, and and start putting wards down as you're clearing. Leave a pink on the opposite side of the jungle. And then when you come back, buy another one and use it on the jungle that you're the side of the jungle that you're going to next. But you really need to start tracking where they're going, and you need to be able to see them coming from a mile away. If you're going through your jungle, start taking the blast cone so that they can't blast cone over a wall and take all your stuff. Use the scrying orb to see where they are, if they're coming in through river or if they're on their way into your jungle. But you need to establish as much as you can. Ask your laners if you see him coming in, he's going to come in. I've killed so many Shakos just by telling my mid laner, hey, free kill. I've killed Scions that want to try and steal my buff level 1 and do that cheese as a top laner. I've gotten so many free kills from just knowing that they're going to counter jungle and expecting it.
I think, I agree with all of that 100%. I think that's like 100% exactly what you should do. I mean, I actually thought of this question like in a different way. Like, so he's leveling to 30, right? Now, most likely what happened is he got matched up against a Smurf, and that Smurf just dumped all over him, right? So, like, first off, like, as an advice for me, don't worry so much about, like, leveling to 30. Like, this is going to happen. Like, it sucks. Like, don't get down. Like, he's probably been playing a game, like, 500 more games than you, and like it's all right, it's gonna happen, right?
Man, I'm still nervous to counter jungle, and I'm a jungler. Like
that's all I do. All I do is live in the jungle.
That's what I'm saying. But you have to know, like the jungle if you're counter jungling, and that's the important thing.
So I think the other thing here is he makes a statement here. He says, my question, and he says, when playing a champion that relies so much on farming early, right? So. And he's like, how do you recover from getting counter juggled in the early game? So that to me like is a shift, because like to me, like when I get counter juggled on Nocturne, I'm not like super unhappy about it, because like Nocturne farms super well and he actually gets back into the game a lot better. It's actually way worse like when you're like Lee and you get counter juggled and you can't do anything and you're behind. Like when you're behind on Lee and like he doesn't farm well, like if he doesn't have damage. Like, so if he doesn't have levels and he doesn't have items, he farms, like, horrifically. Like, he just doesn't do anything. Like, he does no damage to the camps. Like, he doesn't do it. Nocturne always farms well. So, like, actually, the way you should be thinking about it is, like, and there's a bunch of, like, big junglers will say this, and this is, like, the biggest piece of advice I can ever say about, like, when you're getting invaded. If you think you're going to get invaded, just don't go there, okay? Like, because here's the thing, is, like, especially on someone like Nocturne, if Lee goes and like takes your stuff, right? Like, so in this situation, like, did you think Lee was going to come to your red? In this situation, probably not. You're new. Like, you're not thinking, oh my gosh, like you're just trying to like clear the camps and live and like, but like in these scenarios, like if you think like he's an early game jungler, I'm not, like he's going to be there, just don't go there. Just do a clear that takes you not to that side. And if you go over there afterwards and it's your buffs are there, like awesome, great, like it's fine. Because early game junglers versus like actually Lee into Nocturne actually counters Lee, okay? Like pretty hard. Like if you look at the win rates, Nocturne has a pretty solid win rate against Lee Sin, like very, very good. And it's a couple of different reasons like why the champion matches up really well, and it's also like when Lee ganks, you can gank as well, and you don't have to necessarily be there. So you can do what you want to do and then gank when Lee ganks. But the big thing here is like the pressure is on Lee to like win the game before you hit critical mass, because that's how farming junglers work. Okay. So the way you should be thinking of is not like, what do I do? Like, that's not, the onus isn't on you to get back in the game. Okay, that's what you need to remember. Is like when you're the farm jungler, like when you're Nocturne here, the onus is on you just to get to your critical mass as quickly as possible. Lee hits his critical mass much earlier than you do, but the problem is Lee has a time limit. He's got a ticker and it's ticking. Like the second he starts like doing stuff around the map, and like that ticker ticks down very quickly, and it like pressure. So like they have to do stuff like counter jungle. They've got to gank a lot. They've got to do all these things to be active. You know what you have to do as Nocturne? Live and farm. Like, and eventually you're going to hit, like, you're going to get above a point where he's not as good as you. Like, you just outscale him. All right.
Yeah.
So all you have to do is keep the game going. Like, don't worry so much about, like, don't worry about recovering. You know what you do? You're farm jungle, farm. Like, you're going to hit critical mass and get back into the game. That's why, especially when you're playing, when you're 30, like when you're leveling, you're playing the perfect champion. Like Nocturne is a really good jungler to start on. And Projector will tell you that because like he played Nocturne forever, right? That's like all he played, right? And the thing is, Nocturne is very binary. Like what he does is very good against most teams to an extent, especially like where you're going to be MMR when you come out. Nocturne is like broken. Like nobody does what you should do against Nocturne. They don't understand how he works. They don't understand how to counter him. So like Nocturne is just good enough. If you pick your spots correctly, you will win. And all you have to do is just wait for the game to come to you. Like Lee has a timer. That's the biggest thing, is like all of the things that you mentioned are like, those are like mechanical ways to like stop yourself from getting like destroyed in the jungle. But like from a mindset perspective, just think it's okay. It's not the end of the world. He has to win the game before 35 minutes. Because if you get to 35 minutes on Nocturne against a Lee Sin, you probably won. Like you're much stronger than him, like much stronger. So just wait it out. Like you're going to be okay. Like as a farm jungler, don't be upset if they take your jungler. That's going to happen early. If that's the worst, like dying is the real issue because now you're off the map.
Yeah, and if you have died or if your camps are gone, you know what you tell your team? You say, hey, I got countered. Play safe until I get 6. Like I need to get 6. And you tell your laners to play safe, and you farm until you're 6. But you communicate that. You don't just not go.
Yeah, communicate.
Make sure
right?
they know. Like, hey guys, I'm really behind and I need to get 6 before I'm impactful. Because like there have been so many games where I've gotten a huge lead early game and failed to respect my enemy's power spikes because I was so ahead. My team, the enemy team, got power spikes and we just got outscaled and destroyed.
Yep.
That's Nocturne is that kind of champion.
So just when you're a farm jungler, just farm, man. Like it's going to be all right.
Yep.
The reason, just the reason I sort of went into this is because like the way you sort of word this question makes me think that you don't really understand why you're playing Nocturne, right? Like you're playing Nocturne because Nocturne scales really well and he farms really well. Like he farms very well, which allows him to scale very well. And that like is a slow process. Like it's going to take, you're going to have to churn up, right? And you say this even pull off a decent gank until 6. Here's the thing, when you're playing Nocturne, very rarely should you be ganking before 6. You shouldn't be doing anything.
Unless it's super obvious.
Yeah, unless it's like this guy's shoved a turret, he's clearly not warding, he's at like 3 HP, like I'll walk up and push Q and kill him, right? Yeah. But like other than that, like dude, Nocturnes don't gank before 6. Like most of your good early, like your good, like sort of early in your jungling career, junglers don't gank before 6. Like your good, like early junglers are like Warwick, Nocturne. Like there's just like easy Vi is a good one where you just like farm up and then you know what? You go to a lane and you have a high success of like your gank working. And because all you have to do is push R and do it, you know? And like just don't worry, don't gank before 6. This is the biggest piece of advice I can give you because it doesn't matter, man. Like, yeah, Lee's gonna run around the map, he's gonna kill people. So like that's what he does, right? And then you're gonna get strong, and then it's your turn because you're gonna hit 6, and then you're gonna kill a guy, and then your ult's gonna come back up, and you're gonna kill another guy, and then you're gonna be hecka strong, like you're gonna be super strong, and then you just start killing people, and you're gonna be like, oh, this isn't so bad. And you'll be fine. Like it just farm, dude. Like it's gonna be all right. So
agreed.
Yeah. So all right, last question, and this one comes in from Summix, a really nice guy, friend of the cast. So he says, Benson Projector with exclamation points. Your podcast is by far. See, I'm gonna actually read all his kind words here. Your podcast is by far my favorite of the few I listen to. You guys talk about real in-game scenario and who's hot and who's not, and I really appreciate that. I don't usually watch the YouTube videos, but as I was scrolling through the page, I saw the progress on the beards and the changeover podcast. That's pretty funny. I mean, it is true. Like, we are
that's fantastic.
Bearded gentlemen. And mine's been like on, off. Like,
mine's just been on.
Yeah. He says, the reason I'm writing in is I want to get your take on when fed, how to finish the game faster because of your lead. I see this happen often. People actually just talked about this. People get ridiculous ahead and the game ends up going 40 plus minutes and maybe losing when it should have only been 20 to 25 minutes and a win. Why does this happen? And then he proceeds to like say a bunch of things about like why he thinks this happened. But we'll kind of get into that. But he basically summarizes in that like the person who gets fed like runs around, tries to 1v3 and loses their lead. And then everybody is just farming, trying to catch back up with that guy. So what do you think? Like, how do you think you get back at, when you're fed, like, how do you win?
Okay, there is nothing more annoying to me. I will say this right now. There's nothing more annoying to me than when I get a laner, their first turret, and then all they do is go back to their lane and keep farming in place. Nothing.
That drives me nuts too.
Bot lane especially. Like, if you are a laner and you are ahead, you got your turret quick, your next thing to do is go to one of the other lanes and turn it into a 2v1.
Yep. And
then all you do is watch for when the wave's going to crash into your turret and you go back to your lane and you farm it. But your job is to, if your team isn't pushing their advantage and you're just farming, you're not doing anything. This happens a lot. My team will be ahead and all of a sudden someone will say, we're not doing anything. We'll spend 10 minutes just making picks, but not, or like walking around or A-ramming. You should always have a reason for what you're doing. So you just start asking yourself, why am I here right now? Where should I be? Where's the best place for me to go now? I have my turret. The minions are already pushing into their tier 2 turret. So I need to go mid lane and help mid lane push down their turret. Or maybe we need to go get dragon now, whatever. So you need to be thinking, if you're ahead, the onus is on you. You are now the carry. You have responsibility. And if you're ahead, you need to be thinking of where the best place on the map is for you to be. Maybe it's, hey, I'm going to go, I finished my lane and I'm a top laner and I'm strong like Jace. Okay, I'm going to go sit. I know their red buff's going to spawn soon. I'm going to go sit by their red buff and kill their jungler when he comes. Whatever it looks like, you need to be thinking, I need to make a pick here so that I can create an advantage for my team elsewhere. What that doesn't mean is you go to someone else's lane and take all their farm from them.
Yeah. I'm fed.
It's not what
like, I'm fed. Give me this farm. Like, clearly you don't know what you're doing.
But it does mean that you go to their lane, you help them push, and you help them secure kills. And you don't just walk from fountain to lane. Take a way around that goes through a bush and turn it into a gank. Yep. Don't just turn it into a 2v1 that they see and they just sit under turret and you can't do anything. You really want to push the advantage while you have it, because then you're just sucking XP away from another solo laner and you both aren't leveling up.
Right.
So you just always want to make sure you're pushing down turrets or pushing your advantage.
Yeah, and the things that I would add to that is like, one of the ways to think of League of Legends, and I think this is like something that people need to understand, is that League is a game of trading things. It's League at its very core, and this is actually one of the reasons I really like it, is it's a game of economics. You're trading one currency for another currency, right? And like the big currencies are like turrets, like inhibitors, like dragons, Baron, the Nexus. Those things are like big currency, right? But you need to accumulate a lot of the smaller currency like gold, creeps, things like that around the map to do things. Now, what happens if you get fed in lane? Like, kills are a type of currency, right? So say you're Renekton. This is a good example. So you're Renekton. You go up top and you have Ignite and Flash, and they have a Jax, and he has Teleport and Flash, and you just kill him level 3. All right? And it's like, cool. Okay, I killed him. Great. Now, like, what do? Okay, well, you push the lane into the turret so that he loses, experience. He falls further behind, and then you go back, and then you do it over again, right? And say you kill him again, and then you take the turret. So there's 2 options that you have, all right? And this is different depending on the lane, but they all come to the same point, is you now have the option, Whereas Jax doesn't have the option. He does no options. His option is get just destroyed by this Renekton, right? Like, go back and try to get gold, right? But you have a lot of options. Like, you have all this currency because you're way ahead. You have levels to trade. Supports do this all the time. Supports trade levels for map pressure or vision, right? We see that all the time. Like, Bard will run out of lane and he's disappeared, and like, the ADC's freaking out, right? And like sometimes the Bard is incorrect because he's making a bad trade. Like, he's like, I'm walking up here to get chimes, but my ADC is losing currency and losing health, and he's losing creeps, and maybe he dies, and like, that's not a good trade. But so when you're Renekton and you're ahead like that, you have a bunch of options, and like, you just need to think like, how can I get more currency? Like, how can I get more things and make favorable trades? Because like, favorable trades in that situation can be shove like into the Nexus, because a lot of top laners will do that. They'll just shove and shove and shove. And if you're doing that, you need to understand that what I'm doing is I'm drawing that to make a trade. I'm drawing people top to trade. I'm trading me being ahead for everyone else having less pressure on them. Singed does that. Singed a good example. Like, where Singed is trading like weird. It's a strange thing, but like, Singed is trading like kills and like standard laning for weird map pressure, right? Whatever you're doing when you're ahead, you need to understand, like, I'm trying to make favorable trades around the map. And a lot of times favorable trades are not being in lane anymore, because if you sit in lane with a Jax and you just farm and you don't, like, he's actually getting worth less every time you kill him. You're making it better. Like, as you kill Jax over and over and over, you're making it better for them because you know what you're doing. You're not leaving the lane. You're just sitting there. You're killing a guy who's worth less. So, like, either shove that lane into the Nexus, because I see this all the time, is like, a Renekton will get up, like, 2-0, and they'll just sit in lane. They'll just sit there. And then the Jax will just sit there and gain experience and, like, wait till he pushes a turret, and then, like, last hit a couple. And, like, so there's this, like, long, drawn-out, like, what Renekton should do? Shove that turret as hard as he can. As hard as he can and roam. Or dive the stupid Jax under turret. Do something. Like, realize I am stronger than everyone else. So what does that allow me to do? Sometimes it allows me to like shove into the Nexus and draw the jungler top, and then I can 2v1, and like, that's one thing. But another way, some champions can't do that. Like, some champions can't 2v1. That's just not what they do. Like, Maokai, sort of, kinda, but like, Maokai's much better in a gank scenario, right? So like, you get ahead on Maokai, roam mid, gank their mid laner. Now your mid's ahead, and then make a TP play bot. Like, top, it's a good example of this, but like, and jungles, you're making trades all over the map. But if you're fed on jungle and I see you farming your jungle like nonstop, you are like so wrong. Like, you should be forcing their jungler to fight you. Like, make him do something. Like, make them pressure.
You've got them pushed up, then you pressure the side of, you've taken their tier 1 turret bot. Guess what? You own their bot side of jungle. Yep. Like, your team owns their bot side jungle as long as your teammates are near you. So you need to take that advantage and start taking their camps. And start getting wards in there.
A good example is like, if you get the first turret of the game and you're the top laner. Now imagine that all you do for the rest of the game is trade turrets. Okay? Just one for one. Like, you just trade. Every time we take a turret, they take a turret. If you do that for the rest of the game, guess who wins? You. Because you're a turret ahead. Okay? Like, so if you take the first turret and then you rotate to mid and you just completely ignore top lane, you just never go back, right? You don't go back till it's time to push that other turret with your team, and you just group the entire time. If all that happens for the rest of the game is you take their mid turret and then they take your top turret, and then their top laner rotates, and he goes, well, now it's time to take the mid turret. And then you go bot. Guess what happens? They take the mid turret, you take the bot turret, and then they have to take the bot turret. So, like, you're just doing this trading around the map, but you're ahead. So, like, act like you're ahead. Like, don't ignore your team is the biggest thing I can say.
The only thing I will caution is this. Drawing pressure just for the sake of drawing pressure is a bad idea. But drawing pressure to create advantages for your team is a good thing. So, and we've run into this where Benson would get fed on Mordekaiser a lot, top lane. And then all of a sudden he'd end up 1v5ing. And it would be great, except for the fact that the rest of our team wasn't yet in a position. Yeah, we couldn't. We weren't even like close enough to a turret to take advantage, or we were still walking from fountain or something. And it's not necessarily that Benson did that wrong. It's that the team wasn't in the position to capitalize when we knew that Benson would get that pressure.
Sure, but in those scenarios, like if I'm the fed one and I know my team is not going to take advantage, I should just group. Like just group, like just fight them. What are they going to do? They're going to fight you? You kill them all. Like, I mean, you just kill them all.
If it takes more of them to kill you than you plus your teammates, means it's going to take even more of them to kill you.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so the worst thing that you can do when you're fed is not fight people. Put yourself into a situation where I am in like 1v1s or 2v2s at the worst, right? Like don't try to 1v5. Don't like 2v1s, obviously. Like if you can go mid and you can fight their individual laner, like that's fine. But like you've bought yourself like a ton of time. Like you have all this free time now. You're ahead. Like now I don't have to farm to get ahead. I'm already there. Like I already have items. I'm good. Like I'm ready to. What do you do when you're ready? Like you fight or you take turrets. Like if you're not doing one of those like if you're not taking objectives, you're just farming and getting further and further. You're not helping your team. Like you're getting big. And like you now have the ability to help your team, but you need to take that advantage that you have and do something with it. Like a small advantage that someone has used around the map is way better than a huge advantage that someone just sat top for the rest of the game. Because how many times have you had the 5-0 Riven in your game who's just like destroyed their top laner like completely? Guy's worth like 50 gold and he just sits top and freezes the lane. It's like, dude. Like this is a good example. Is like there's a pretty funny video that and we'll kind of get away from this because we're going long on this topic. But there's a video where Crepo is with an ADC and he's lost his turret. Okay, and they've lost their turret, and guess what? The bot lane has rotated and it's moving around, and his ADC wants to freeze the wave at the second turret, and Crepo will not let him do it. Like the guy is spam pinging him off the wave, like just spam pinging him. And he's like, no, we are going to push this wave because it's not great for us. Right. But the trade is worse. Like if we just sit here, our team has to 3v5 right around the rest of the map. And that's not acceptable. So like sometimes the best trade that you can do is like making sure that they can't leave. You know, like that happens top a lot where you're behind and you're just like, God, like I am just getting destroyed by this dude. And all you could do is just make sure that he can't leave. Just stay in the lane as long as you can and not die. Don't let him leave because the second he leaves, he's using that advantage to dump on someone other than you. And he's already dumping on you. So like, accept that that's happening.
It's almost never advantageous for your team if you freeze your lane.
Ever.
Like it's.
Just
you should be pushing. Yeah. You need to be putting pressure. Pressure is the name of the game.
Always be pushing. Always. Yeah. Like, I mean, there are very few, even like top lane, like there's some scenarios where like, yeah, you can freeze a wave. Like just push the lane. Stop. This isn't the LCS, man. Just push the lane and kill that dude. Like just push the wave, you know, because he doesn't know how to punish it anyway. So you're fine. Like,
so.
Yeah, and I think that's a great question. So, like, group with your team and kill stuff. Like, take objectives. Think about what you're doing. Don't just go, well, I need to farm and to stay ahead. Like, end the game, dude.
Like, end the game.
So, personally, I think that Dan's question is a great question. I think Summix's question is great as well. What do you think?
I like Dan's only because I remember what it was like to be on my journey to 30 listening to podcasts and trying to figure it all out. But I think one of the most frustrating things in the game is what happens when you get cheesed like that. And what do you do? And I'm really glad that he's looking at that and saying, you know, how do I deal with this appropriately? So I'm going to give it to Dan.
Yeah. And remember that one kill, like no game ends 1-0. This ain't soccer. Like it's not soccer, like
especially at the elo you're going to be playing.
Yeah, trust me, all your games are going to be like 45-48, and like and then and it's going to be the last team that got aced, you know, and then we won, yay, you know, and like that's how it always is, and like don't worry about it, man. It's one kill out of 48, like no sweat. So great questions. Really good. We love these questions. You know, there's a bit at the end of the podcast about it. You can send them all into summonersift@gmail.com. We love these questions. One person every week wins $10 in RP. This week it will be Dan. Dan, you did not leave us your summoner name. So please, you know, add me in game. It's the Benson, not hard to remember. THE Benson, BENSON, and I will gladly give you some RP, buddy. You can buy a skin or some new champs. So.
And ladies, he is taken. All right, don't just add him and expect like. All right, he's
Please
taken.
don't.
He's a happy man. It's not by me,
married.
unfortunately.
Happily married. I don't know if she would say the same, but you know, it is what it is. She has to deal with this podcast stuff. She's over there sitting there with a bunch of headphones on, like, God, I wish this would be over. She's waving her hand like, hurry it up. Let's have it end. So, all right, folks, get out there, kill some people. Any final thoughts?
Only kill people in game. Don't kill actual people. That would be terrible.
Good call. Good call. Please.
Other than that,
not advocating actual murder.
The one thing I will say is this: when it comes to Riot's communication with us, and I don't want to go into it really, I just want to say this: just be thankful that they're communicating with us at all, even if they're like dead wrong in the moment. At least they're trying, and there's a conversation going on with the game. I agree,
100%.
So like, just give them the benefit of the doubt on some stuff. I know it's their job and they have to do it right, all the rest of that, but like, they're communicating. Let's be thankful for at least that much. And be patient with them. So
they're good. They're good folks over there. They made a pretty sweet game. So like, give them the benefit of the doubt occasionally. It's not all. They're not all trying to get you. It's not a conspiracy against.
And we are not sponsored. So that is just coming straight from me.
That is straight from me as well. So I would echo that sentiment wholeheartedly. So all right. Thank you so much for listening, folks. We'll see you next time.
Take care.